Have you ever felt so alone that even the shadows seem like your only company? Alexander Morgan's voice was barely a whisper, trembling with a vulnerability no boardroom had ever witnessed. For decades, he had built walls around his empire, around his heart, but tonight those walls were crumbling. The weight of a single girl's story pressed down on him, unraveling the very core of his carefully crafted life. His eyes, once cold and calculating, now glistened with a torment he couldn't escape. Tonight you will witness a man stripped bare, confronting the haunting question, can someone who's lived a lifetime in control truly surrender to love? What happens when success demands sacrifice and the price is a chance at redemption? Stay with me, because the choices Alexander makes next will shock you and change everything you thought you knew about family forgiveness and what it means to truly belong. No, I'm definitely not signing that. Alexander Morgan slammed his hand on the polished mahogany desk, causing a stack of papers to leap into the air. The sterile office hummed quietly, the only sound the sharp rustle of documents falling back into place. Emily, his assistant of 3 years, took a careful step back, accustomed to the steely glare that had just cut through the room. It's just a small donation, Mr. Morgan. $50,000, a fraction of your company's monthly profits. Lincoln Elementary desperately needs this bilingual program for homeless children. Alexander rose, the leather of his chair creaking softly beneath him. He moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking New York City's endless grid of lights. I didn't build this empire by giving money away. Every dollar that leaves this office must bring back more. Understand, his voice was cold, unyielding. But sir, it's not just charity, it's an investment in the future of these kids. Education changes lives. Alexander turned sharply, eyes narrowed. Those kids aren't my problem. If their parents wanted better futures, they'd work harder. Simple as that. He stalked back to his desk, dismissing Emily's pleading gaze. Emily quietly packed the proposal away. This was not the first time she'd seen this scene. Dozens of charity schools and social programs had faced the same cold refusal. And yet tonight would be different. Later that evening, Alexander's steps echoed through the marble lobby of his skyscraper. The city was silent except for the distant hum of traffic. His sleek black Mercedes waited beneath the neon glow. Driving through the heart of Manhattan, his mind drifted. The month's profits had surged by 15%. The penthouse he'd coveted for years was finally within reach. Red light. He stopped. That's when he saw her, a small figure crouched on the cracked sidewalk, bathed in the pale yellow light of a street lamp. A girl no older than 10, her clothes worn, but clean, scribbling furiously in a battered notebook. Writing this late, Alexander murmured the traffic behind him, growing impatient. Her eyes met his for a fleeting moment. No desperation, no pleading. Just an unexpected dignity that made him pause, engine idling, world narrowing to the girl's gaze. The light turned green. Horns blared. He pressed the accelerator but couldn't shake the image. The girl writing under the flickering lamplight stayed burned in his mind long after the city skyline faded behind him. At his penthouse, the city stretched endlessly, a sea of lights. Yet Alexander felt a chill. That girl, Lucy, as she would soon tell him, her name had unsettled something deep within. The next morning, during a high-stakes meeting with Japanese investors, Alexander's mind kept drifting back to that corner. "Torre-san, are you all right?" Mr. Yamamoto's voice sliced through his distraction. "Fine," he muttered, but the truth was far from it. That evening, Alexander took the same route home, heart pounding. There she was again, Lucy, notebook clutched protectively, ink-stained fingers trembling in the cool air. He approached cautiously, shoes clicking against the pavement. "Hi there," he said softly. She looked up, eyes large and dark, wiser than her years. "Good evening, sir." "What are you writing?" she asked, clutching the notebook tighter. Stories, she whispered, about people who lose their way and sometimes find it again. Alexander was hooked. The simple honesty of her words cut through years of cynicism. "Why are you out here writing at night? Don't you have a home?" Lucy's smile was sad but strong. "I do, but life changed fast. My parents died 2 years ago in a car crash. We lost everything. The insurance didn't cover it all." He studied her worn shoes marked with the dust of countless streets. "Don't you have family? Aunt Robert disappeared after the funeral. Maybe a grandmother in another state, but I've never met her." She opened her notebook pages filled with neat handwriting. Here, she said, pointing to a story she wrote yesterday. It's about a man with so much money he built walls around his heart. But those walls left him lonely inside. Alexander read the opening lines. The metaphor pierced him deeply. Why write this, he asked. Because I see so many people like that. Fancy cars, designer clothes, but they carry heavy stones in their hearts. He recognized himself in those words more than he wanted to admit. Where do you sleep? There's a shelter nearby, but it closes early. I like this corner. It's quiet and there's light. Alexander looked around. A forgotten corner in a busy city, but to Lucy it was a sanctuary. And how do you get by? Sometimes people give me coins. Mrs. Campbell, who runs a taco stand, gives me leftovers. She says I remind her of her granddaughter. There was no dramatics in her voice, only a dignity rare in his corporate world. Did you go to school? Lucy's eyes sparkled for the first time. Lincoln Elementary. They had a bilingual program. My favorite teacher was Miss Sanders. She taught me to write stories. Alexander's breath caught. The same school whose funding he denied just hours earlier. Why aren't you there now? They closed the program. No money to keep it running. I can't afford books or uniforms. He felt a crushing weight in his chest. His cold refusal had crushed this little girl's hope. Would you want to go back? Yes, I want to be a real writer someday and help kids like me. Miss Sanders once said, education is the one thing no one can ever take away from you. Alexander sat back stunned. Lucy, homeless, vulnerable, carried wisdom that outshone his boardroom partners. What if I told you I could help you get back to school? Lucy looked at him skeptically. Why would you? He searched for the words. Because your stories are right. Maybe it's time someone tore down some walls. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He paced his apartment, whiskey untouched. Lucy's words echoed a call to change, to be better. At dawn, he called Emily. Bring me all the documents on Lincoln Elementary now. Also find the best family lawyer and a social worker. Is everything all right? She asked. No, nothing's all right, but we're going to fix it. As the city woke beneath the rising sun, Alexander felt the first stirrings of a transformation, one that would challenge every belief he'd held for decades. Thank you for following this beginning of Lucy and Alexander's journey. What do you think? Could a cold businessman really change his heart because of one little girl? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please give it a heart and a like to support more stories like this. Morning light spilled into Alexander's sleek office, but the usual clarity he found in numbers was nowhere to be found. His mind circled relentlessly around Lucy's fragile story. The very school he'd dismissed now stood as a symbol of everything he had ignored. Emily's voice interrupted the silence. Mr. Morgan, the documents are ready, and I've scheduled meetings with the family lawyer and social worker. He nodded, though his heart was pounding louder than the city outside. When he stepped into the boardroom, his usual steel resolve seemed thinner, worn down by an unfamiliar weight, guilt. At first, his partners noticed the change with subtle glances, but it was Mr. Yamamoto who finally asked Alexander, "Is everything all right?" His practiced smile faltered. "I've made a decision," he said, voice low but firm. "Lincoln Elementary is getting double the funding, starting today." A murmur rippled through the room. This was no longer business as usual. But it wasn't just money he was offering. That afternoon, Alexander found himself standing once more beside Lucy, the worn notebook in her trembling hands. "I want to help you," he told her. "Come live with me. Let me be your guardian." Lucy's eyes widened. "Why? You don't even know me. I want to make this right," Alexander said, fighting the unfamiliar lump in his throat. But the road ahead was far from smooth. The news of Alexander's sudden generosity sparked whispers across the corporate world. Within days, rival executives exploited the story, casting doubts, twisting facts, painting his kindness as weakness. One evening, as Alexander sifted through urgent emails, a particularly vicious message appeared, an ultimatum to choose: continue funding Lucy's school or protect his company's reputation. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. The boardroom battles, the deals, the endless climb, all suddenly seemed meaningless. He typed one word in reply: Lucy. This choice was more than charity, it was a declaration. His life was no longer about profits. Meanwhile, Lucy faced her own storm. Rumors at school twisted her story into accusations, theft, manipulation. The pain in her eyes was more terrifying than the cold streets she'd known. Alexander heard of the rumors and knew he had to act. Walking into the bustling school auditorium, he took the stage. His voice echoed across the room as he laid bare the truth. Lucy was a victim, not a criminal. Her innocence was unshakable, her spirit unbreakable. The room fell silent. Then applause not just for Lucy, but for a man willing to stand by her, no matter the cost. Yet behind that strength, Alexander's mind churned. Could he really balance this new family with the demands of his empire? One sleepless night, he pored over spreadsheets and legal papers, but his thoughts always wandered back to Lucy's smile, fragile yet defiant. A knock on his door startled him. It was Robert Carter, Lucy's long-lost uncle, returned after years away. His presence stirred tensions Alexander hadn't anticipated. Lucy belongs with family. Robert insisted, eyes sharp with urgency. Alexander felt a cold knot tighten in his chest. Family, blood ties, love. Could he truly compete with that Lucy's own heart was torn? On one side, Alexander's unwavering support and the safety she had never known. On the other, Robert's promises of roots and stories of a grandmother waiting to embrace her. In quiet moments, Lucy retreated to her writing, the only place where her thoughts found peace. She scribbled furiously, crafting tales of ships lost at sea, of storms weathered and harbors found. Her story was a reflection of her own soul seeking a place to belong. One evening, after a heated conversation between Alexander and Robert, Lucy stepped forward with a resolve that surprised them both. "I won't choose between you," she said firmly. "We will find a way together." Her words hung in the air, fragile yet potent. Days later, Eleanor Morgan, Lucy's grandmother, fell gravely ill. The news brought urgency to decisions long postponed. Alexander dropped everything. He coordinated care, arranged for Lucy and Robert to travel to New York, and faced the crushing fear of loss alongside hope. The journey was heavy with emotion. Lucy clutching her notebook, Alexander standing silent. Robert watching with a mixture of guilt and determination. At Eleanor's bedside, time seemed suspended. Stories were shared, tears flowed, and bridges long burned began to mend. Back in the city, Alexander received an offer to expand his company abroad. It promised vast wealth, prestige, but it also demanded leaving Lucy behind for months. For the first time in decades, Alexander hesitated. The cold businessman within battled the father he was becoming. In the quiet of his office, he made his choice. Family first. The deal was declined. Lucy's laughter, her writing, her fragile trust, these were treasures no contract could replace. The city lights outside the window flickered, mirroring the newfound light within Alexander's heart. Thank you for staying with us through this chapter of Lucy and Alexander's story. What would you do if you were in Alexander's shoes, torn between ambition and love? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please show your support with a like and a heart. The weight of decision hung heavy in the air, but Lucy Carter's voice cut through the tension like a beam of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "I won't ask you to choose between love and blood," she said softly, her eyes steady. "There's room for all of us in my heart." Alexander Morgan and Robert Carter exchanged glances, two men from different worlds, both fiercely protective, both flawed but sincere. For the first time, they stood not as adversaries, but as allies, united by a shared purpose, Lucy's future. The days that followed were a delicate dance of compromise and healing. Eleanor Morgan, Lucy's grandmother, welcomed them with open arms, her frail frame radiating an unyielding strength. Her small home in upstate New York became the anchor that tethered the scattered threads of Lucy's past and present. Together, they shared stories of loss, hope, and resilience, the invisible stitches weaving a new family tapestry. But life's trials were far from over. One late autumn evening, Eleanor's health took a sudden turn. A rush to the hospital was met with anxious waiting rooms and hushed consultations. Alexander was there, unwavering, his hand a steady anchor for Lucy. As she gripped it tightly, the familiar scratch of her pen on paper, momentarily forgotten. In those sterile halls, time slowed. Faces blurred, fears sharpened. But through it all, Lucy's spirit shone brightly. Her stories, once a refuge from the chaos, became a bridge. She wrote of love that transcends bloodlines, of homes found in unexpected places. When Eleanor's condition stabilized, a profound sense of gratitude settled over them. The fragility of life had drawn them closer than ever. Back in New York City, life slowly found its rhythm. Alexander adjusted his company's plans, turning down a lucrative overseas expansion to stay grounded where he was most needed. Robert found work nearby, embracing his role not just as an uncle, but as a steadfast father figure. Lucy flourished her laughter, filling the apartment, her pen dancing across pages filled with dreams. At school, her teachers marveled at the transformation. No longer just a girl who had survived, she was a beacon of hope, a storyteller whose words inspired her classmates. One afternoon, as they gathered around the dinner table, Lucy's voice was filled with quiet confidence. "I'm entering a national writing contest," she announced. "The theme is family. I want to tell our story, the story of how love can build bridges where walls once stood." Alexander smiled, pride welling in his chest. "That's the best story you could tell." The day of the contest arrived, and as Lucy stood on the stage, the audience, captivated by her words, Alexander and Robert watched side by side. Her tale was more than a narrative. It was a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the power of chosen family. When she won, applause thundered, but the true victory was the healing that had unfolded within their hearts. Months turned to years, and the family's bond only deepened. Each summer was spent visiting Eleanor's home, where stories of the past mingled with plans for the future. Lucy's notebooks multiplied, each page a chapter in a life rewritten by love. One evening, as the city lights shimmered below their apartment, Alexander reflected on the journey. The man who once measured success by profits now understood that the richest wealth was the family he had found, imperfect, unconventional, but wholly his. Lucy, pen in hand, looked up. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me." He reached out, clasping her hand gently. "Thank you for saving me. As this beautiful story draws to a close, I want to hear from you. What part of Lucy's journey touched you the most? If you were in Alexander's position, would you have made the same choices? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please comment 3 to show your love. If you think it could be better, comment 1. If you feel neutral, comment 2. And please let us know which country are you watching from today. Don't forget to like, heart, and share this video with friends who need a reminder that family is more than blood. It's love, trust, and the courage to open your heart. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire and heal.